we're live.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome to episode 294 of the Co-op Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Bailey Jr., and today I'm joined by Mr. Gary A. Swaby. How's it going, Gary?
It's going very good. Thank you very much. Glad to be back on this fine Sunday. How are you doing, Rich?
Doing pretty good. It is currently about 90 degrees here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Uh-oh.
So I guess you could say the summer has come just a little bit early. The humidity is not as bad, but still, I'm not really a fan when it gets too hot. So we'll see how I do this summer, provided that I'm actually still here by the end of the summer.
All right. Yeah, I know those summers in Georgia get pretty hot. I was there briefly when I was changing flights or whatever, but yeah, I know it gets real hot out there, so I feel for you, man.
Oh yeah, hey, shout out to Mills also, because he is originally from Georgia, so he definitely know how hot it get as well. So, but yeah, we'll be okay. We should be all right. We'll see what happens. But yes, pretty much as for this week in gaming news, there wasn't really, well, I guess you could say there wasn't really too many things. There was, of course, one major news story that we're going to get into here in a little bit later on. But overall, it seems as though things are a little bit tame, a little bit quiet, because everybody is getting ready for E3, even though there isn't really too much excitement for E3 this year. But there is going to definitely be a lot of news that comes out of E3 and around that time. So everybody's just really getting ready for that at this point. Um, so on that note, there's definitely some things to talk about. But before we get into all of that, I want to let you all know what we have been playing this week. So Gary, I'm gonna go to you first. How about you let everybody know what you've been playing?
Okay. Wait, am I unmuted? No, I'm not. Okay. Okay, yeah, so I've been playing Overwatch, of course I have. And actually this week coming up is the 3 year anniversary of the game, and there's going to be a new event and everything, so new skins and stuff like that. I'm hearing rumors that there's going to be a new diva skin that's going to break the internet, and people are speculating that this is going to be K-pop related, like Korean pop, because there's a lot of highly popular Korean, artists, and that it's got its own kind of rich fan base around the world, and apparently this new skin for Diva is going to be, completely K-pop themed, and I mean I don't know enough about K-pop to really understand the magnitude of what this is going to be, but I'm hearing that it's going to break the internet basically. I do remember when they added her Black Cat skin, that got a big reaction from people. But apparently this is going to be like way bigger than that one. So we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully it doesn't start some kind of outrage or anything like that, because I know people get a bit touchy over things like that. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Besides that, I've been continuing to play Legends of Heroes: Trails in the Sky whenever I can, whenever I have time to. It seems like the story is just beginning to really pick up, but I've been focusing on doing a lot of side stuff, so I've been progressing a bit slower with the main storyline, because I'm just trying to level up my characters and making sure I'm ticking off all the other side content and things like that. So I'm just kind of pacing myself, taking my time with it, playing it a few minutes at a time whenever I can. And that's pretty much it for this week. I haven't, I didn't have too much time to game, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Sounds good. Yes. So as for me, there's really only two games that I've been playing for the most part. So I'm gonna start off with one of them. Uh, I have been playing Rage 2. The last time that I had been on this show, at last week I had just received a review copy of Rage 2, but it was the day before we started recording. So at that point in time, I hadn't really had a lot of time with the game. Since then, I have spent a considerable amount of time with the game, and I've actually already started my review. What I can say about Rage 2, though, is that I will say this: there's a lot of different elements put into this game. When it comes to the shooting, ID Software, this is the same people that worked on the most recent Doom. That combat and shooting, it does feel satisfying. It's not quite as fast paced as Doom is at certain points, but nothing feels greater than just you go to a certain camp and you're taking out different enemies, blowing up different stuff. That's great. That's a great element about it. The open world aspect that Avalanche brings to the game. It's a massive open world, but it doesn't feel as though there's a lot to explore. There's certain things that you can explore, and then other things it just doesn't really feel like there's a lot in there based on what I have played. I've gone to certain areas where I will run into different characters where they're asking me to do tasks for them, stuff like that. So like a lot of fetch quests in there, if you will. Um, but overall, to me the game is pretty much there's a lot of elements about it in terms of what I expected. Plenty of fetch quests. You do have certain missions that you do where you have to take out a certain number of goons, and then there's also mutants that you can take out, like these huge mutant bosses. All that stuff is cool, but when it comes to the actual storytelling of the game, it's just the story is just very bare bones, very minimal at best. I mean, and it's also very generic. As the story starts out, you end up becoming the last ranger. Your captain dies in a battle, and now your goal is to avenge her death by taking out the guy that killed her. One of these little one-dimensional villains that you normally see in some of these movies. So it doesn't really feel special. The story is just very straightforward. You of course interact with different characters that were in the previous Rage, as well as other characters that they help you on your quests as you are slowly building up intel, your skills, so on and so forth, to be able to actually finally take out the main antagonist. So there's not really anything that's interesting about the story. Sure, you can go around different places collecting a ton of loot, whether it's cash, parts, etc. That never gets old. I like doing that type of stuff. I like trying to get collectibles and stuff like that. Or just stuff like if you're riding down the road, you see a bunch of enemies. You can shoot them if you want. You can race them, run over them. Certain stuff that you would expect. So overall, I would say the game is pretty good. Um, could it have been better? Yes, I 100% do believe that it definitely could have been better. As I have said multiple times on this show, I do like a very good story in a game, and this story just it doesn't really have anything in this. It's very average for me. So if you're somebody who likes stories, then you definitely would not want to pick this up for that reason. But if you like just playing a game where you can just go around, blowing up stuff and trying to explore different regions, then yeah, you may want to check it out. But other than that, it's not really anything special. It's not a bad game. I will say that it's not bad. It's good enough for what it is. But do I think that Avalanche could have done more with the game as well as IB? Absolutely, 100%. They definitely could have done more with it. I did see that there was a report that came out that the studio would definitely make a Rage 3, depending on if the fans want it. So we'll have to see how that pans out. I do believe the game it can. I mean, I'll be curious to see where it falls on NPDs for this month when we actually get to that. But for the most part, I would say it's a pretty decent game, pretty good game for what it is. Uh, just if you go in expecting just bare bones storytelling and then just shooting and just throwing stuff up and exploring, then yeah, then you'll be totally fine. You'll want to play it at that point. But if you're expecting more, then I just want to tell you, you may want to lower your expectations just a little bit. So I will have a review for that sometime this week. I do apologize. I wasn't able to get the review done sooner, but yeah, I've had a busy schedule this week, especially. But yeah, look for the review later on in the next couple of days. The other game that I did get a chance to play, and I actually did review this past week, was A Plague Tale: Innocence, uh, made by Asobo Studios, published by Focus Home Interactive. If Focus Home Interactive sounds familiar, this is a studio based out of France. They have published games like The Surge, uh, and they're also working on The Surge 2 right now. They've also published a game called Vampire. That's how you pronounce it. The Vampire game, which we actually had Assad review for us last year. Um, so this studio is on a roll, publishing a lot of great titles that I think people should definitely pay attention to. A Plague's Tale, as you have seen in my review, and definitely I would encourage you to check out a link to the review, which we will provide for those who haven't seen it yet. It is an action adventure game. Um, I definitely will tell you, if you watch the latest launch trailer, uh, I will tell you to watch that trailer, but don't think that that's all the game is. There's a lot more to this game. I know one thing that people were asking me about in the review was that they see that normally you just see in the video footage, it's always the girl, the sister walking around with the brother, always holding her hand. That isn't the case, because there are some missions in the game where you are just playing as the sister, or you are just playing as the little boy. So I don't want people to see that trailer and be like, well, this is all the game is. Me basically, chaperoning my younger sibling all over the place, trying to escape rats and traps and stuff like that. There's a hell of a lot more to this game, and specifically with the storytelling, seeing how the brother and sister relationship is built over time. I think they did a phenomenal job on that element by itself. Because for those that don't know, the younger brother has an illness, and as you play the story, you get to learn more about that illness. But because he has that illness, he pretty much has been separated from his sister their entire life. The younger brother is like 5 years old. The sister, I believe, is around 13, but she hasn't spent hardly any time with the younger brother because they're always separated. The parents keep them separated. So pretty much when you start the game, that's when you have your first interaction with the brother. And as you go through the game, their relationship is being built up over time. So again, the way they handled that storytelling is a phenomenal. They have ups and downs like any brother and sister would have, or if you have a sibling, you always know your relationship is rocky sometimes based on communication, or there's certain things that you disagree on. But the way they handled that in this story is just a phenomenal storytelling. Period. I know the game is doing well. A lot of people have had a chance to play it. It's been getting great review scores across the board. I think they 100% deserve that. And I would say if you're looking for a different type of experience, you definitely should check this game out. As I said in my review, there are about 16 chapters. That would probably take you, I want to say, about maybe 15 or so hours, depending on how much you want to do, if you want to get all the collectibles that are in the game. Um, but 100% totally worth it. Totally worth it if you like action adventure games that have puzzle elements in it. But definitely check out my review for more. Um, and definitely check out the game if you're interested. So on that note, um, I believe that concludes what we have been playing. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump right into the topics, because there are a few things to talk about. As I said before, not too many things to talk about, because this is the calm before the storm. There'll be a lot of news when E3 happens in the next 2 weeks, the next 2 to 3 weeks. But for now, this is what we have to work with. So the first story I'm going to tackle is actually some news that transpired yesterday. It was broken by Jason Schreier over at Kotaku, so we give him all the credit. But pretty much, it was reported that Call of Duty, which is being planned for 2020, the Call of Duty coming out next year, is being developed by Treyarch. If you're familiar with Call of Duty, you know that they had a different development cycle where they were developing. There were 3 different studios working on the game. Well, now the report is that Sledgehammer Games They are no longer in charge of the franchise. They're still going to be working on like as a support team on these games, but they are no longer on the actual franchise in that capacity as a head developer. Sledgehammer and Raven Games, that report did state they kept having a lot of arguments over the certain direction of the game. So as a result of that, now Treyarch has decided to step in, and the rumor is that they are working on Black Ops 5. I'm a little tired of Black Ops, but for those of the Black Ops fans, I'm pretty sure they're excited. But I wanted to get your take on this particular situation, Gary. What are your thoughts on what's going on with Activision and Call of Duty 2020, aka possibly Black Ops 5?
Um, yeah, so there's a few things to unpack here. So yeah, I mean, for Sledgehammer, I mean, sorry, not Sledgehammer, for Treyarch, they literally just worked on Black Ops, I believe, right? Was that the last game
Yeah,
or was okay? Yeah, so now they only have a 2 year cycle, whereas usually they have 3 years to develop the next game, and we just had Black Ops, and now we're gonna get Black Ops again next year. So I think people are gonna get very tired of the Black Ops brand, even though I think that's the one that sells the most, right? Black Ops. Like I think that brand of Call of Duty usually sells the most. Or
yeah. I mean, it is a popular. Um, it's typically a popular franchise. The
uh,
problem is that last year they didn't have the story; they just
oh
had the
yeah,
multiplayer.
oh yeah, that's
Um,
right.
and I do think that the multiplayer, I believe the report was digitally it sold well, but physically it didn't sell well because the multiplayer was really the only thing, but there
Mm,
was no story. It felt like the game was missing something. But
right.
that's all I was going to say. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know how well that one sold then, but I know that Black Ops is a popular Call of Duty brand, but I think people are gonna start to get burnout if they're seeing they're seeing the same thing over and over, and if you have that same name as well attached to it, like the Black Ops, like if people see that too frequently, they're gonna be like, okay, another one of these, what's different? They're gonna start to question things. So I don't think it's good to like. I mean, if you have two studios that are bickering over a game, I think that says a lot about the leadership. Like Activision. Activision is the publisher. They are in charge here. They call the shots. So I mean, they shouldn't let two studios bicker to the point it's hurting business. That at that point they should be stepping in. They should be, working out all the differences and all the issues going on between the two studios and making sure that they can work together to create a cohesive product. And Activision should be doing more anyway to improve Call of Duty and to make sure that Call of Duty continues being, you know, being looked at as the standard for military FPS games. So because it's getting. I mean, I think we're already past the point of it being becoming stale. So Activision should be wanting to do more to ensure that there's enough innovation and enough original ideas being put into these games moving forward. So I feel like Activision needs to play a closer part in development. And just the fact that Raven and Sledgehammer bickering is actually causing an issue, that goes to show that Activision only cares about money and profit, and they don't care about the quality of the actual game. It says a lot about the actual leadership in this case. So again, I have no faith whatsoever in the Call of Duty brand anymore. I have no interest, and after hearing news like this, like it just reminds me more and more why I stopped playing these games. I will say that I do like Sledgehammer. Like I feel like they've made some great Call of Duty games, and I hope that they're able to work it out, and I hope that they're able to shine, in the future and come up with something great again in the future. But yeah, I just feel like Activision is just running the series into the ground, and yeah, I don't see a turning point. But
So,
what's your thoughts?
well, let me start off by saying that those are some great thoughts. Uh, my personal thought on this whole situation is I think that a lot of us we should have saw this coming, because I know that not too long ago it was reported that the founders of Sledgehammer Games decided to leave. Michael Condrey, there was a report that happened. This happened earlier this year, where he actually left Sledgehammer and then started a new studio at 2K. So I I feel as though they saw that there was some tension, there was some things going on within Sledgehammer, so they decided to get out while they, while they had the opportunity to do so. But when the people that find the company decide to leave the company, you definitely have to have some concerns about what's going to happen with the company moving forward. So I I personally, while I do hope that Sledgehammer Games eventually does find their footing and make something else that they want to make, I don't think that they're ever going to be the same studio that they were, because the people who were behind it are no longer there. I'm not trying to say that the people who are in charge right now aren't going to do a good job, but I have a little less faith now in them, because the people who actually started the company, who were the heart and soul of this actual team, are not there anymore. Um, so I'll be curious to see what happens with this situation, but they are working as a support team. So I do feel, though, at least they can contribute something to whatever these Call of Duty projects are moving forward. But just to not be as one of the one taking on all the full responsibility of being the head of the team, yeah, I think that makes sense for right now, considering what they're going through at the moment. Um, but yeah, what you said about having those issues with the bickering back and forth, I don't think Activision, like I said, Jason Schreier reported on this. I don't think Activision would like that news getting out there that this stuff is happening, but I mean, it's out there, because it shows that they're having issues. That there's certain things that they have to work at, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of internal discussions that happen at these studios where if there's certain conflicts, people have to address them. I just don't think Activision would like this stuff getting out in the open, and I know that a lot of sites have already reached out for comment to try to get a comment from Activision. Activision hasn't provided a response yet, so I'm not sure if that's going to happen next week, because again, this story just broke on Saturday. But yeah, I mean, we know certain things do happen behind the scenes, so it is what it is. But in regards of them going back to Black Ops 5, I do think that I do agree with you 100% that that can definitely get stale after a while. I played Black Ops 4, and I have to say that they had in the game, you have the multiplayer, but they did have this thing called where you were able to play as the specialists, as they term them, the special type of player types in the game, where they had these little cinematic stories where they would try to give you a backstory and try to give you a story as to what's going on with these characters. But you can tell by playing that, because it's a very short experience where you're playing these tutorials that teach you how to play as a character. You play through that, but you can tell there's something missing from this. And I know they had mentioned they were working on a story, but they didn't finish it in time, so they just decided to just do multiplayer. I think it's a bad idea to release the product when it's not completely finished. Just like what EA did with Battlefield 5, where they released the story, but then the Battle Royale feature didn't come out until this year. I think that's a bad business practice. I understand you provide more content to the player later. But if the game is not complete at launch, I think it shouldn't launch. Period. Until you want to release the game in the complete state that it's supposed to be in, that you had initially planned for it to be in. But they made that decision. So to be honest with you, I think Call of Duty Black Ops 5, they're going to be using a lot of the recycled assets that they already had for this story they were trying to do for 4, and they may very well just put that into this game. I'm not saying they're not going to add a couple of other elements to it, but they already have stuff that they have been working on. So that's probably what they're going to do for this, just to make sure that it actually hits the deadline of coming out next year.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. Like, because I mean, judging by the fact that they have less time than usual, yeah, you can bet that this game is going to be very similar to Black Ops 4. Like, it's a guarantee. So,
Oh yeah. And the other thing is, I know obviously Activision hasn't really announced a new Call of Duty for this year yet. I'm very curious what that's all about, what's going on with that, because I don't know what studio was working on that. So I didn't check the scheduling of what studio was up next. So I don't know what's going to. I mean, I would assume there's still going to be a Call of Duty this year, but I mean, we'll find out. We'll find out about that. Because I guess that bleeds into the next topic, which we'll go into here in a little while. But
mhm.
Call of Duty 2020. I don't know, man. I don't know what to think about that yet.
Yeah, I just want to say as well, because you mentioned that the founders of Sledgehammer left the company and stuff. And
Yeah.
whenever stuff like that happens, you should pay close attention because that's always a sign that something is wrong, and that usually it's the parent company, in this case, Activision. Usually it's them, you know, hindering the creative process that leads to things like this happening. Because founders, they tend to have a lot of foresight, and they they're able to see how much their company is changing because of all the politics going on with the business and the corporate side of things. So they always tend to leave these companies and studios and stuff when they see that the tide turning. And this has been the case with many other studios, BioWare, you know, and Visceral, like other studios that we've seen kind of crumble or decline in quality. Like things like this have happened. So that's always a telling sign when the founders leave.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Um, it definitely is concerning, and it should be a concern. Um, but I guess Activision. I mean, this is going to be a test for Activision to see how they're going to rebound from this, what their plans are going to be to try to change course. Obviously, they don't want the franchise to get too stale. They don't. They still want it to be successful, to still sell. So they have to keep thinking of ways to reinvent. And with Black Ops 5, I don't really know how much reinvention they're going to do if they're going to end up using a lot of the same assets. But they are going to definitely have to think of ways to answer this call, because again, as I said before, they haven't really come out and have any public statements about any of this stuff yet. At least not to the extent of what happened with the other, with Sledgehammer, so on and so forth. So I'm very curious to know what their response is going to be once they actually do respond to this, because I'm pretty sure they're going to have some type of other statements this upcoming week. But yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. But at the same time, I have to say I'm very curious what Michael Condrey is doing with 2K in terms of this new studio. I did get a chance to meet him when I went to one of the Call of Duty World League Championship events in Los Angeles a couple of years ago. Very cool, very laid back guy, and he very much, you can tell he's very passionate about the work that they were doing at Sledgehammer. So to see that he has left the company now, I mean, it definitely couldn't have been on good terms, because I mean, he really enjoyed. He was really into what they were doing with Call of Duty, because when I went to that particular event, that was when they were talking about the Call of Duty for the very first time, when they first were brought on to do Call of Duty. And that first game they did was fantastic. It had an excellent story, everything. So yeah, it had to be serious for him to decide to leave. So I'm curious to know what he's doing with 2K, and I guess eventually we'll find out about that. That won't be until next gen, because again, he just left to start that studio, so that's at least another, I want to say, 4 or 5 years away, if not sooner. But we'll see. But
We shall see.
yes, absolutely. So, any other thoughts on this particular Call of Duty story before we move on to the next topic?
Let's get to the next one since it relates.
Yeah, so everybody knows that E3 is right around the corner. Literally about 3 weeks. About 3 weeks time. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. yeah, we'll be right around that time of E3. So we learned this week that Activision, they are not going to have a major presence at E3 once again. They will not have a booth at E3. We know this because we did get a chance to see some of the floor maps of E3, and yeah, it's evident that Activision will not have a huge presence at the show. Now, I will say this: in the last couple of years, Activision hasn't really had. I mean, they had a booth last year, I believe, because that was when they was advertising. I believe they had Destiny that was coming out and a few other things, so they had to have a booth. This year, not so much. Um, but also, we don't really know what they're going to release. I mean, I would assume if there is a Call of Duty coming out, then yeah, that'll definitely be something that we hear about. But I will say this, full disclosure. Normally, for those of us that go to E3, we do receive emails about certain things that Activision are going to show, but they're going to show it at like a appointment that's off site. I haven't received any of those emails yet, so I have no idea if Activision is even going to have that this year. Because I mean, right now we're getting to today is the 19th of May. A lot of people wait until the very last minute, like 2 weeks before the show, to start sending out massive emails about appointment invites. So I can still get an invite for this type of stuff, but right now, Activision not having a booth, we do know that is official. So Gary, what are your thoughts on Activision deciding not to have a major presence at the show this year?
Yeah, I remember. I believe it was 2016 was the last time they were absent from E3. But
Yeah,
I think they still did some things behind the scenes though. Like if I remember correctly, like we went to some behind the scenes stuff outside of E3 for Activision. But
yeah.
yeah, this year I think like what do they have? They don't like because they lost Destiny. You know,
See,
Destiny's no longer theirs. And
see,
go ahead.
oh no, see that's a great question. Yeah, they don't have Destiny. Um, Call of Duty is really the only thing I can think of. They did release, that famous game that we kept talking about earlier this year, so Sekiro. That was them that published that. From
Oh yeah.
Software made it, but they published it, so they released that for sure.
Oh
And I
yeah,
do
yeah.
believe they do have the Crash racing game coming out as well.
Yeah.
Um,
And that comes out like right after E3, so
yeah,
I don't know if I don't know if that's worth them having a booth for because it's literally coming out like right after E3.
yeah, no, I know, I agree with that. So
And
I really don't know what else they would have.
yeah, I mean the only kind of presence I could see them having is maybe they'll announce this year's Call of Duty at one of the other. I mean, I guess it would just be Microsoft because Microsoft is going to be the only big time console manufacturer who's going to have a press conference there. So
Yeah,
so maybe they'll reveal the new Call of Duty at that press conference. But other than that, I guess there's no reason for them to be there, and unless they were going to make the new Call of Duty playable, then it would make sense to have the floor space. But it seems like that's not their plan. So so yeah, I mean, it seems like Activision doesn't really have much going on. I mean, Sekiro is already out there. Crash is coming out a week after E3. And the only thing we don't know about is the new Call of Duty. So I mean, unless they were to announce something completely new that we don't know about, but hey, I mean, that's the nature of E3 at the moment. I feel like a lot of publishers aren't rushing to buy floor space anymore because they feel like it's not worth it because they can still they can still be in the discussion for E3 without actually being there, physically on the E3 show floor. So, they could still make their way into the Microsoft or the Nintendo press conference just by having a major announcement. And, Activision will still be a factor. People will still talk about them. And, they won't have to spend money on the show floor and stuff. So maybe that's their strategy. We know that that's the strategy of a lot of other people who have pulled out of E3. So, I guess that's just what it is. But right now, it to me it feels like Activision aren't as strong as they were at the start of this generation. I feel like they've kind of they've kind of gone backwards a little. And I guess losing Bungie was a big deal. Losing Destiny was a big deal because back when they were pitching the first Bungie to us, like, we were thinking, wow, this new IP is going to carry them,
Mm-hmm.
to new heights and everything. And now they don't even have it anymore. And I feel like, because obviously Activision is, it's like it's a dual company because Activision Blizzard, they're two companies that operate under one umbrella. And right now, I feel like the Blizzard brand is kind of carrying things a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the Blizzard brand is a lot stronger, whereas at the start of this generation, it was completely the other way around. Because Call of Duty was still a major brand at the start of this generation, but now they've run that series into the ground to where it's not as valuable anymore, and they've lost this Destiny. So I feel like Activision is kind of struggling for relevancy right now, and that's just the reality of it. So if there's no reason for them to buy floor space, then there's really no point. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Activision starts showing up at BlizzCon or something, because BlizzCon always packs the house out. Like, people are always going to BlizzCon, and we've started to see Activision games pop up on the Blizzard app. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do more stuff under the Blizzard umbrella, just to because they know a lot of people are playing Overwatch. They know a lot of people are going to be playing World of Warcraft Classic. So just to keep the Activision brand in people's faces, they might just use Blizzard a lot more to try and capture new players and stuff like that. So
That actually is a very good point. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, I was going to say that I agree 100% with what you said about feeling as though they may have lost some relevancy, because I do recall that when Destiny came out, that actually was, I think, one of the first games this generation where everybody was like, "Well, is this going to be like a big? What was going to be perceived to be like a big deal?" Um, and that was a while ago. But when that first came out, there was a lot of hype around it, and then of course the first game, it wasn't really quite as good. There was a lot of great things about it, but the story was not. I was not a fan of the story and the simplicity of the characters and all this other stuff. But I mean, it had a lot of potential. So for the fact that they don't no longer have that, that is definitely a big deal. Plus, the other thing that really died a lot this generation was the whole toys to life concept. Because I know that they had Skylanders, they had a lot invested in that particular franchise, and I mean it still is somewhat. They're still doing a little bit of stuff in that today, but it is not as big as it was at the beginning of this generation or last generation. Because I recall all of those toy sets that they had, and every time I would go to GameStop, there were a lot of people looking to buy those toy sets just so that they can keep playing the game. So they were definitely making a killing on that, but then it got to be too expensive and wasn't quite as popular, so the investment wasn't there. So I think Activision is just taking their time, trying to make some different investments. I do think that the Sekiro Shadows Die Twice investment was fantastic, because From Software, they make really good games, very challenging games also, but very very good games for a particular type of audience. So I applaud them for doing that. I also applaud them for trying to get in on these remasters, because the Spyro the Dragon remaster, that did pretty well. The Crash Bandicoot one absolutely did fantastic. So they are making some smart decisions, but I do think that the smartest decision that they could make was deciding not to have a booth at E3, because it wouldn't have made sense to pay for all that booth space if you don't really have something major to show. As you said, they can definitely just show new Call of Duty in the place in them, to say the Xbox E3, E3 press conference. Um, but yeah, they don't really need to have a major booth for that because they know everybody. I mean, I feel like everybody who is going to actually go to E3 and is going to that Microsoft press conference, they already know Microsoft press conference is going to have pretty much all eyes are going to be on that because there's no Sony conference. Sure, there is going to be a Bethesda conference, so on and so forth, and a Ubisoft conference. But for the major third-party titles, every third-party title is going to be shown at that Microsoft conference. So, yeah, they don't need to really do too much. They can just have a trailer shown there. Maybe they still will have behind-the-scenes meetings, but I think they made a wise decision not to have a booth this year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I hope they have a lot of new IPs up their sleeve, and maybe it's too early to show us anything. But for their sake, I just hope that they have a lot of stuff that they're working on in the background that we just don't know about. Because to me, it seems like they're not doing so well right now. Um, but we'll
yeah,
see. I mean, there's also the new generation coming, so I feel like a lot of publishers might be holding their cards because they're probably already developing stuff for the next generation. So it's definitely too early to show any of that stuff because they have to wait for Microsoft and Sony to announce their consoles. So you know
exactly.
um, that's a big factor also. So uh,
Next year, I believe next year is the year for these new consoles to drop if not 2021. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that they may hold for that. So I just want to say this. I believe E3 2019. There's a lot of people won't be at this conference. Um, for good reason. I feel like there's a lot of things changing in the industry right now. And of course, we don't even know if E3 is going to be in Los Angeles next year, as of right now. So that could change as well. But I will say this: if E3 does happen next year, without a doubt, E3 2020 is going to be massive. I think because the new consoles are going to finally be announced and maybe drop in the same year, I feel like there's going to be a lot more of an incentive to go next year than it is to go this year. Um, but we'll see what happens. But Activision, I definitely I have to agree. I would love to see what other new IPs they're working on. They definitely have to be working on other things because you can't just make that announcement about the Bungie thing is over if you don't have something else that you're working on. They know that obviously they can buy themselves a little bit of time to work on other things by releasing games like Sekiro and whatever these other Call of Duty games are, but they absolutely 100% have to be working on something else. It's going to take a while before they can actually show it, but we'll see. We'll see what the future holds.
yeah, I guess it's a game of waiting. So we'll wait and see what happens.
Absolutely, absolutely. We shall see. So on that note, let's shift gears to another third-party studio, which is going to have a show at E3. Uh, Actually, on that first Monday, right before E3. Of course, I'm talking about Ubisoft. Now,
Let's hope they don't have the worst show again. Ever.
wait, was they the worst show last year? I don't recall what
Well,
all they showed.
maybe not last year, but there's been a few years where they had the worst one. So
Yes, yes, no, you're right. And obviously, we are going to have a show where we're going to talk about our predictions as far as what they're going to show at their conference. But there was some news that came out this week that I thought was very interesting because they had their financials call. So first and foremost, they announced there are two major stories out of this. First and foremost, they announced that Skull and Bones, a game that both you and I have played at the previous E3s, they announced that game has now been delayed until 2020. So I guess they decided they needed more development time. So instead of it coming out this year, it's going to be coming out sometime early next year. There isn't any release date. I'm assuming that when we get to
wow.
E3, there will be some type of announcement about that, but we'll see. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this? Because I know you was very high on this game after playing it at E3. So what do you think about this delay?
Yeah, I mean, when I played it, I was like, you know what, this isn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. It was basically, ship battles from Assassin's Creed, and for the most part, that those can be fun if you're into that stuff, But I feel like this game was announced way too long ago now, and I think there's like zero momentum for this game right now. I feel like this game should have came out already like 2 years ago or something. So the fact that they're delaying it even further, first of all, it seems like they're delaying it so it can release next gen as well.
Yep.
And I don't know, like that just doesn't seem appealing to me. Like why this, why this game? Like who? I don't feel like this game has a huge following or a lot of people who are highly anticipating it. So they might be setting themselves up for failure with this one, like by delaying this game. Because when I
Well,
played it, it seemed like they were, it seemed, I don't want to say shippable because like I didn't get to play the whole game. So obviously I don't know how much of it is complete, but when I played it, I had like it felt like okay, this game could probably release this year or early next year or something, and that was in like 2017 or something like that. So yeah, like it's just I don't know, man. I think they might have missed the window with this one. I feel like they should have released this like either before. No, they should have released it after Sea of Thieves. I feel like it would have had a bigger impact then.
yeah.
But now I just feel like they've dragged it out way too long. But what do you think?
See, I agree 100% with that because I when I saw this game and I saw Sea of Thieves, I instantly was more interested in this game, not just because of the art style, because I listen, I like Rare. I think they do a good job, but Sea of Thieves, it did not really appeal to me and stand out as much. This whole ship formula is something that Ubisoft they actually stumbled upon this when they did the Assassin's Creed games, and they did such a good job of that. So I was surprised that they didn't try to make a game like this sooner. But then when they decided to go all in and make the game, I said, okay, yeah, this will probably be successful because a lot of people like the ship elements in the Assassin's Creed games. So that's good. But upon hearing this news of a delay, and I would also like to reference and update that statement just a little bit because they said that the current plan is for the game to be released in the fiscal year 2020 to 2021. So what that actually means is that this game can release anytime between April 1st of next year to March 31st of 2021. So that sounds like a very, 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 very far off release date. Um, the only thing I could think of is because they say that this is an open world high seas game. They must be adding some type of story element to it. They have to be adding more to it because the core mechanics of what the game has is already there. When I played it last year at E3, it was a lot of fun. It's a great game, but you kind of feel like, is there more to this though? So they have to be adding more to it for it to just get pushed out entirely. And according to this report, they're not even going to be at E3. This game is not going to be at E3 at all. So yeah, they definitely have to be adding more to it for it to be delayed. But I do agree that it definitely missed the mark because I feel like if it came out around the time or shortly thereafter Sea of Thieves came out, then yeah, the audience that was already into these pirate types of games, or these the ship building, the ship, these types of games, they were going to be all over this. Now, will they still be into this? Between 2020 and 2021, I have no idea. It depends on the job that Ubisoft does as far as selling the concept to people as to try to get them into it again. But that delay is a while, so I have no idea what to think about that. But I wish them well. Hopefully, this decision to wait out this long, it turns out to be a good decision in the long run. But we'll see. So now that you know this game might not be coming until 2021, does that make you even more? I mean, feel like, well, I don't really care about this game, or are you willing to wait?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't care about the game anymore already. Like, I feel like Ubisoft must have like spoke to Square Enix long distance and asked them for tips on how to drag out a game, like a game release, because this feels like some Final Fantasy level like waiting time for Sea of Thieves. So yeah, yeah, I don't care about it anymore. Like I feel like we just said, that would have been the perfect window to release this game when Sea of Thieves came out, because you know the reception to that game was very mixed. Like you had people who bought into the idea of being a pirate and you know finding treasure and all that stuff. And I feel like if this game would have came out like a month later or a couple months later, even a lot of people who were super into the theme of Sea of Thieves would have transitioned over to this, you know, and I feel like that would have been its perfect time to peak. But now I just feel like, you know, the whole treasure hunt thing has kind of lost its appeal a little bit. And they have a lot of work to do to kind of build that up again, to build the momentum up for that, you know. So yeah, I don't know what they're thinking with that. Maybe they know something I don't know. I don't know, but yeah, it just I don't know. Like it just feels weird that they would delay that game.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. Um, so that's one half of the story. Now, one other thing I do want to mention now in this as we shift gears to the other half is that Ubisoft did announce in that particular call that they do have three games that are releasing between now and March 31st, 2020. Um, so I'm curious what those games are. And the interesting thing here is that, of course, they recently revealed Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which is coming out on October 4th. That is not in any way one of those games, because that's actually a fourth game that's coming out. So there are three other games that they have not announced yet.
Are these three unannounced games, or could they have been announced already? But like you know,
Oh no, no. They said that there's three games that they haven't announced that are going to be revealed later.
oh okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and these games are coming out in the Q4 period between, you know, any time between that period, which is October until uh, March 2020. Um, and again, according to this report, it says the Ghost Recon Breakpoint that is a fourth game, but that is not included in the three games that they're talking about. So I wanted to get your opinion as to what these three games could potentially be, um, because I do have some thoughts as to what they could be, but I want to get your opinion. And by the way, let me just say one thing. I have to clarify this: three AAA games. So Just Dance does not count as a AAA game.
Well, I'm sure some people count it as one. I know Edward Velasquez. I know he loves that game. So, but
Oh, he
oh, what was you saying?
yes. He definitely will get you for that comment later.
Come at me, bro. But yeah. As for these three games, I think I'm sure you know when you tell me that there's three unannounced Ubisoft games, I'm sure the first thing that pops into everyone's mind is Watch Dogs 3. Like I'm pretty sure that's gonna turn out to be one of them.
Yeah.
Because it just makes sense. Like it feels like the right time for a new Watch Dogs. And you know, with E3 coming up, I feel like it's the perfect time to announce that. You know, and as for the other two, now tell me something.
What's that?
Did they actually come out and confirm that there's no Assassin's Creed this year?
Yeah, yeah. They said Assassin's Creed is not coming back until 2020.
Okay. Okay.
That's what they said.
Right. So it's not Assassin's Creed, right?
No, no, no. I think Assassin's Creed is definitely coming out next year because there was that rumor about a Assassin's Creed game. Now you'll laugh. Maybe you heard the rumor about Assassin's Creed game called Assassin's Creed Ragnarok, where you're basically playing as the Vikings, Viking period. Um, that rumor has been debunked or it hasn't been confirmed yet, so we have to ignore that one. But I did laugh at that title, that Ragnarok title.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's it's too close to Thor, the movie. So, but okay, so it's not Assassin's Creed. That's interesting. So the next thing that comes to mind is Splinter Cell. Because we
yep.
haven't seen one of those in a while, and a lot of people are anticipating another one. There's no more Metal Gear as we know it. So a new Splinter Cell has, you know, it has the ability to kind of become that new top dog in terms of spy espionage type of games. So I think that would be a good step, for them to come out with a new Splinter Cell and kind of, revamp it. Um, you know, it can be like a complete remake of the series. So I think there's a good chance that that's going to be one of them. Now, as for the third one, I'm really struggling, to be honest, to think about what the third game might be. So I'm going to pass it over to you now, Richard, because I'm sure you've come up with some
Uh
good
oh.
ideas and some good theories about this.
Okay, so uh, well, if I have to think about the third game, we know that it is not Beyond Good and Evil 2 because that is a next gen game, and that's a game that has
Yeah.
already been announced.
Yep.
So it's definitely not that. Um, if I had to think of a potential of what the game could be, okay, there are two things here to really consider. Um, this game, to some people, I don't really think I don't really know if it's going to be considered a triple A to everybody. Although I think it definitely is a triple A in some capacity, and that is, of course, the Mario Rabbids game. Because that Mario Rabbids game, I recall when, and I was at that E3 when you had Nintendo showed up at Ubisoft at that event. Everybody just went wild when they saw uh, Miyamoto show up on stage. And I recall that what was so interesting about that partnership is it showed you how invested Nintendo was with Ubisoft. And then ever since that has happened, Ubisoft has now, it seems like every year they have some type of announcement where there's a Nintendo character that ends up in one of their games because they did it. Star Fox was in that other game that you actually went to a preview event for in London. Um,
Oh yeah.
so my thought is that them making a sequel to that game, the Mario Rabbits game, I totally see that happening, and I totally see that getting announced at the show. That could be considered a AAA title, depending on if you're a Nintendo fan or whatever. But that last game did very well sales wise, and Nintendo was very happy with it. Ubisoft was very happy with it. So I don't. I think a sequel to that game can 100% get announced at that show, and that could be considered a major release for the fall. So that's a wild card. The other wild card, though, is a game that I think a lot of people would not expect, but then again, I don't know why they wouldn't expect it. I have noticed that recently Ubisoft has been teasing the hell out of Rainbow Six,
Mm.
and they have been doing it with a lot of like whether it's stuff on Twitter or in the videos and stuff. And I know that they recently
Oh
announced,
yeah.
yeah, see, because I know that they recently announced a new operator character for Rainbow Six Siege, and I think that a lot of people just believe, okay, that's all this is, because they're still supporting Rainbow Six Siege right now. Every year they have new, like another year two, year three, they have more content that they do for that particular game. But what's to say that they haven't been working on another game entirely connected to Rainbow Six Siege? Um, I think that is a possibility only because they have been adamantly teasing this for a while now with Rainbow Six Siege. So that's a possibility, maybe. Because I feel like that Rainbow Six Siege game that came out a long time ago. It feels like I don't know exactly because I'm not looking at when it actually came out. It feels like it had to be at least 3 or 4 years that that game has been out, and they continue to support it. It has obviously been successful because of the continual support, but they have to be working on other content for that game. I would imagine, but to work on the actual new game entirely, I do think that that is possible. But if I had to make a guess, I believe that would be one that people wouldn't expect. Um, yeah, those really are the only two that I could think in terms of a third game. What you said about Watch Dogs 3, we've been hearing rumors about Watch Dogs 3. We've heard a rumor about Watch Dogs 3 taking place in London also. So if there is going to be a London event, I will 100% make sure that you can try to get into that. Because
Thank you for that. I would love
yeah,
to.
I think that would be awesome. Yes, and of course you played Watch Dogs too, so yeah, you know a lot more about Watch Dogs to know how to go into this game. So we'll see if that happens. But Watch Dogs 3, yes, 100%. And Splinter Cell, yeah, I want Splinter Cell to happen. I know there was a creative director that sent a tweet out this week, pretty much saying in this week that he's been working on the new Splinter Cell. And then, of course, Stone Chen, who was a PR for Ubisoft, we know very well. He sent out a tweet telling him to, not to be sharing his messages like that. So I don't know if that was a troll or if that was serious or whatever. But Splinter Cell is a game that I expected to get announced at Ubisoft's event last year, and I was very disappointed when it didn't, because the thing is that they revealed pretty much every game before it actually released. They revealed Assassin's Creed Odyssey because there was a leak for that. They revealed what was the other game that they revealed last year early? I can't really remember at the moment. But they pretty much revealed all of the games they were working on. All that stuff came out before E3 even happened. So, and I thought there was going to be some surprise when I actually went to the actual show, but then to find out that there wasn't any other surprises, I was very disappointed. So, I 100% expect to see Splinter Cell. I don't know if it's coming out this year or early next year, because one of those games is definitely coming out early next year. But I don't know which game that is. But if I had to make a guess, those would be the guesses as to what I asked to, as far as what I think we're going to actually see. I know a long time ago when I went to a Ubisoft event for Far Cry, the creative director on that particular game was the creative director of Prince of Persia. And I
Hmm.
asked him at that event, what's going on with that series? He said, oh, well, that series is still around, but we haven't heard or seen anything about that series in a long, long, long time.
Yeah, I was
So,
actually about to ask you about that, like the possibility of there being a new Prince of Persia.
yes, that's definitely possible. And I honestly think that they should do that, because it seems like all of the games they've had as of late, it's all the tactical shooters like Ghost Recon. I mean, there's nothing wrong with those types of games, and even with Assassin's Creed, there's nothing wrong with Assassin's Creed. There's nothing wrong with Watch Dogs or this type of game. But Prince of Persia would definitely be something fresh that they can bring to the table right now, because I feel like a lot of the stuff that they have is too much of the same.
Yeah.
So that would be awesome if they showed that. Even if it's not releasing this year, that would be a fantastic announcement that no one would expect. That would surprise people as well, because I feel like that series is long, long overdue, right next to Splinter Cell in terms of it getting some type of update.
Yeah, and like it felt like when the Assassin's Creed games started to like rise in popularity, those games kind of took over from Prince of Persia, like
Mm-hmm.
because I remember like there was one I forget the name of the that last Prince of Persia that came out, but that came out, and then I remember the first Assassin's Creed came out, and there was a lot of hype around that, and I remember buying that game because of the hype, and that turned out to be a big deal, and people were impressed by how they blended like the futuristic sci-fi stuff in with the ancient setting, and then when Assassin's Creed 2 came out, like the series just took off, and that became the new kind of adventure game for Ubisoft, and they didn't really make another Prince of Persia like that again after that. So yeah, like now that the Assassin's Creed games have kind of become a bit stale, like I know people still like the most recent ones that came out, Origin and Odyssey. Like I know a lot of people love them. People said they were great and everything, but I still feel like as a whole the series is a bit stale, and that's why they have to now space it out, so that it comes out in 2 year spans and
Hmm.
stuff. So I think this is the perfect time to reintroduce Prince of Persia, and because that will definitely be very refreshing to what they have now, because they have a lot of tactical shooters and things like that, and not everybody is interested in playing tactical shooters and stuff. So I definitely think they need some more variety in there. And if they have a Splinter Cell and a Watch Dogs and a Prince of Persia, then I think that's a great way to add variety to the lineup.
Oh, I agree 100%. They and just to add another point, they could just as well announce a new IP, but I have no idea what that IP would be. I just think you have these franchises that people are interested in. The safer bet would be to do something with those franchises if it's going to take a while to work on something totally new. But if one bit of advice I can give Ubisoft though, if they do decide to do this whole 2 year cycle with Assassin's Creed, they need to actually stick to that cycle. Because I recall that a couple of years ago we got Assassin's Creed Origins, then a year later we got Odyssey, and I'm like, man, I hadn't even touched Origins by the time Odyssey came out.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're gonna do 2 years, yeah, do a really kick-ass a game. Release that. Say if you want to release this new one that's coming out in 2020, release that in 2020. But I don't want to see another Assassin's Creed until 2022. Don't release it and do 2020 and then 2021 because I know they've been doing that with Far Cry. Like Far Cry 5 came out last year, and then just a couple of months ago we got Far Cry New Dawn, which because they have that whole development cycle where they try to develop two games at once, where they have another team working on another part of the game to release at a later time as like a mini expansion or like another game entirely. I don't want them to do that. If you're going to do a 2 year cycle for Assassin's Creed, have it actually be 2 years because then that gives people time to miss the franchise and want to see what the next one is. But I don't think they're going to do that. But we'll see. We'll see. But very good point on Prince of Persia. I would love to see that franchise return because it has been a long time. And I was looking on Wikipedia while you were talking. There was a Prince of Persia mobile runner game that they released last year. But I mean, come on, man, that's a runner game on mobile phones.
Yeah, I
Where
don't I don't
where's the
count that.
full? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, where's the actual full fledged game? So they definitely have to be working on something. But it's just a matter of when that's coming, if that's going to get announced. But I'm pretty sure they already know. Aside from Splinter Cell, that is the next franchise. People are going to be like, "What's going on with this franchise?" So hopefully, they are going to make that announcement in the future. If not next month, hopefully by next E3 in 2020. But that definitely is something that they should bring back. I would say that that would be a great idea if they brought that back.
Yeah, and I would say, seeing as they have these three unannounced games, they could potentially be the best press conference this year, E3. So, maybe I was wrong for doubting them and saying that they're going to be the worst one again. Maybe they'll actually end up being the best conference at the show. You never know.
Well, that's possible. I mean, yeah, the surprises they will probably definitely have the best surprises. But I don't I I don't know, man. I would not count out Microsoft. Um, here's the thing: they could end up becoming the best third party publisher to have the E3 conference. But Microsoft, I think Microsoft is going to blow the roof off for whatever they show, depending on what they show, because they said all their studios that they acquired are going to have something to show, which I find a little surprising. Not all of them, I don't think, are going to have something to show, but Ninja Theory definitely going to have something to show. I don't know what that is, so we'll see. We'll see what that's all about. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting E3 to say the least.
For sure.
Yes. So we have two other topics to get into. Um, oh yeah, awesome. The first one, this one we probably ain't going to have much to say on this. It was reported that The Last of Us Part Two development is finally starting to wrap up. I know that Neil Druckmann had announced not too long ago that they had finished shooting the last scene, and right now I know that Naughty Dog is doing like a lot of hiring to get people in to help with the final push of development. So I guess you can say that development has reached the critical stage, and at this point now we're just going to be waiting to hear news on a release date and maybe some more gameplay. Now I know when I believe that they also announced this when God of War had finished their development process. Um, I believe that after that it took maybe about, I want to say, about 8 to 12 months before you actually got to see the game hit stores, or I don't know. It's hard to tell when it's going to be coming out. But after hearing this news, do you have any ideas as to when we're going to potentially see Last of Us? Whether or not you think we're going to get a gameplay trailer this year, or whether or not you think the game is coming out this year. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I'm going to I'm gonna say it's coming next year.
Okay.
Whether it's springtime or in time for the PS5, I don't know, but yeah, I feel like it's not coming this year. I mean, I guess the fact that they filmed the final scene, I think that there probably still needs to be a lot of work done. Like they probably have to put a lot of polish on the game. I'm guessing this is maybe like their first draft, if you will. I'm trying to think about it in terms of like writing. Like when you're writing a novel, you do your first draft, and you have the entire story laid out in text. But then it takes months and months and months of polish and editing to get it to a state where you can actually publish it. So I guess that they're kind of at that state now where they have the entire game, mapped out, in each segment of the game mapped out, but they still have to do a lot of polish to make sure it all fits together and that it all flows, and that there's no bugs, and that it's all fluid, like and ready to be released. So I'm gonna guess that that might take another 11, 12 months or so, just because of the quality of their games. Like these are major productions. So yeah, I guess they're reaching that point now where they're gonna have to start crunching, like, and just really making this a solid piece of work, and that's gonna take time. And I think their aim is really to just have it ready before the release of the PS5. I think that's their true aim. I don't think they're trying to rush out for the PS4 or anything like that, like, before next gen. I think Sony wants to sell this with the PS5. I think that's their vision for this release. Because it makes sense. Like the timing of it all just makes sense. Like if you have the PS5 coming, you may as well, because this is the big game everybody's waiting for. Like if you own a PlayStation right now, this is the game you want to play right now. So to get people to make that jump, they should plan to release this as close to the PS5 as possible, because we know that Naughty Dog is known for their ability to make visually stunning games. So if you want to sell this 8K kind of console hardware or whatever it is, I don't believe it's going to be running 8K day one, to be honest. But yeah, if you want to sell this idea of the next step, this is the perfect game to do it. because people don't know what Death Stranding is still. So that's not the perfect game to sell because nobody knows what the hell the game is. So this is the game to do it with. And I do believe this will be cross-platform, so you can still get it on your PS4, but I think it just makes sense to market it with the PS5. And I guess we'll see, what the direction will be when I mean I don't know what Sony's plans are in terms of the rollout for announcing the PS5 and announcing, because I assume that now that they're at this stage of development, they are going to show something soon, in the coming months. So
Yeah.
my guess is that there's a new Last of Us trailer coming, but I don't know when Sony plans to show that because obviously they're not going to be at E3, but we do know that they're going to have a state of play somewhere near the time of E3,
Hmm.
and they also might have some other streams or events later this year. So who knows what Sony plans to do? But I do think we're going to see something new from The Last of Us very soon. But I don't think it's releasing this year.
Oh yeah. Well, I think the way you laid that out is pretty perfect. And that's exactly what I was thinking. If I had to make any plans, initially I thought in my mind they would show the Last of Us trailer, or like a gameplay or some type of gameplay thing for the state of play next month. Even though they haven't announced that there's a state of play next month, I think we all can all assume that that's going to happen because there's no way they're not going to have something with E3 right there, even though they're not going to be at E3. But as I thought about it further, one thing that they haven't really confirmed yet is whether or not they're having a PSX this year. So I know that PSX, they showed that trailer at PSX before for Last of Us Part Two. If I recall correctly, I believe it debuted at PSX, and I have to check that because So anyone that's listening to this later, please do not shoot me. I'm not looking at anything. I'm just trying to use my memory to remember some of this stuff. But my thing is that I can totally see them showing a new trailer for The Last of Us Part Two at PSX in December, and at the end of that trailer, releasing spring 2020, they'll have an actual release date. Because then, of course, if they do that, everyone will be screaming, "Oh!" They'll be screaming. The audience will go crazy. All the Sony fans, they'll go crazy. But yeah, I think that's a realistic time frame, a realistic goal, because also one thing I know people love is that when somebody announces a game and the release date is like coming up really really soon. We saw that with Bethesda when they announced what was it, Fallout, not 76, not that game, we will not talk about that game, Fallout 5, when they announced it, and we saw it at E3 and then it was out like a few months later. This is probably exactly how they will treat this for Last of Us Part 2, where they have it at PSX in December, and the game is coming out maybe in like March of next year if they do that. Unless, of course, they just surprise everybody and drop it this year, which I don't really know if that's possible because I don't know how far in development this thing is. But I think early next year definitely lines up, and it could be a cross-gen title. Of course, the question is going to be though, if this game is coming out next year, what is Sony going to drop this fall? And if I had to make a guess, I would say Ghost of Tsushima, because I think that game has been in development for a very, very long time. Because if I recall correctly, Infamous Second Son, that really was the true first game that we got when PS4 launched. I mean, I know they had Killzone and all these other games, but that was the game that I was waiting for when I got PS4. I says, when is the really good exclusive coming out? And that was the first game I recall getting because I remember I got the platinum for that one. So I could totally see them releasing Ghost of Tsushima this fall as Sony's fall game, and then just ride off into, if they have PSX, then they announce, oh yeah, Last of Us Part Two is coming out. Because I think we can both agree that Death Stranding is definitely not coming out this year.
Yeah, I highly doubt that.
But That's just my guess. Obviously, that could change. We'll have to see, but I feel like Last of Us coming out next year, it makes sense, and it works very well as a cross-gen title. Because PS5 will probably be out next year as well. So we'll see. But that's just my guess.
Yeah, that makes the most sense. And I definitely agree. Ghost of Tsushima is probably going to come out first among all these games that we're currently waiting for on PlayStation. So it makes sense that that game might release this year. But I definitely don't think we'll see Last of Us 2 and Death Stranding until next year.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I would also say Ghost of Tsushima coming out this year totally makes sense because again, Sekiro is very popular right now. I think that is one of the surprise hits of this year for a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
So if Sony does release that game this year, this is excellent timing for them. Excellent business strategy because a lot of people will be totally into that, and that'll do very well for them. So, but we'll see. Again, I don't know. It feels like that game has been in development a lot longer than these other two games. So I would not be surprised if they did announce the game is coming this fall. If they announce it at PSX or I'm going to say at the State of Play or whatever. So we'll see.
Yeah. Do you think we'll also get a Horizon 2 announcement, at the next State of Play or maybe PSX later this year?
You know what? I do feel that announcement is coming because I know that the actress that played, uh, I believe it's Iden Verso in the Star Wars Battlefront 2 game, she spilled the beans saying when the fan asked her, they thought they thanked her for all the work that she did. She played one of the characters in the DLC for Horizon, and she pretty much says, "Oh well, wait till you see the sequel. Wait till you hear about the sequel." So I don't. I know she wasn't supposed to say that. So the sequel is definitely in development. Uh, as far as when we'll hear about that announcement, that definitely could happen at PSX if they have PSX later this year. That announcement is probably not going to happen for a while though. And this is a game that will definitely probably we probably won't see until at the absolute earliest. I would say late 2021, maybe 2022. It's going to take a while because I mean they probably has some more content that they pulled from that last game that they can build off of because they had the DLC also. But I feel like that game is a ways away. There's no way that's coming anytime soon. But we'll see.
Or you
It's
you
possible.
uh you just made our friend Ramiz very upset by saying that.
Oh, wait, hold on. Oh no, hopefully. Hey, listen, hey, Rabiz, hey, I could be totally wrong. I'm no expert.
But yeah, that's actually like the first Horizon was really great. I didn't get to finish it just because there was so many games, but I did play enough to know that they're definitely onto something with that series. So that's going to be
I,
a great announcement whenever they make it.
I, I, I must admit that I feel very bad because I have not had a chance to play it. And the funny thing is that I had purchased the game, downloaded it on my PlayStation. I just literally haven't had the chance to play it because the same day that game came out, that was the same day I left for GDC. And I recall around that same time that Legend of Zelda game also came out. So I remember people making the comparison between this game and that game as to which game people wanted to actually pick up and play. So hopefully I will get around to playing it. I have the game and the DLC already downloaded on my PS and PS4. I just need to make the time to actually play it. But yeah, sequel is definitely coming. I can't wait to because I have to play that. I have to play that, and I also have to finish God of War. So I definitely have to finish these games. But just so people don't think I'm completely not playing games, I did complete Spider Man. I did complete Beyond, Beyond Two Human, and I did complete Detroit. So I have been playing some of these games. I just haven't really finished all of them yet.
Cool. Yeah, I don't think anyone's judging you. I mean, there's so many games to keep up with nowadays. It's like you can't beat them all. So I
Yeah.
mean, and I know for a fact you've been playing more than me and beating more games than I have. So I mean, hey, if anyone wants to come at you for that, they should come at me because
Uh oh. Uh oh.
I haven't beat a game in a while. So
All right. So we'll definitely get some hate comments after this episode. So I'll be prepared for that.
yeah, I'm just keeping it real.
Absolutely. So now let's shift gears and go on to our final topic for today, which apparently is some news that surprised a hell of a lot of people. I know the Throwdown has already touched on this, and I think they were definitely surprised. But we got some news that Microsoft and Sony, they have announced that they will collaborate on new cloud-based solutions for gaming experiences and AI solutions. Um, this announcement was made, I believe, on Thursday of last week, and I guess that the internet, when they saw this news, there was a lot of questions that had a lot of questions people had, just utter shock and amazement, because I guess they expect that Microsoft and Sony to always be competing against each other. And don't get it twisted, there still will be some competition, obviously, because there's going to be people that want to see them compete.
Hmm.
But what do you think about this happening once you heard this news?
Yeah. So I know, like, and I know the general thought behind these businesses and competition is that these companies hate each other, and they'll never work with each other, and their whole direction, like their everything they do is based on getting a one up over the other company. I know a lot of people think that, and being on a podcast, we like to entertain that discussion.
Yeah,
But the reality is that when you have two big corporations like this, and they're in the same a lot of the same businesses, they are going to collaborate at some point. And you often see Microsoft people at Sony conferences and Sony people at Microsoft conferences and things like that. Like they do have communication. They communicate with each other a lot. When it comes to businesses, and when they're moving into a completely new generation, and bringing out new hardware, they need to know that there's going to be a balance, if you will, in terms of infrastructure and things like that, because both companies want to push things forward. They want to take the next step, and they need to make sure that they're both on the same page to be able to do that. Because yes, one console may be slightly more powerful than the other, but they need to make sure that they're around the same sort of price range and things like that. Because if if one if one company does something significantly different, they could actually hurt the entire industry. Like they could cripple the industry. So a lot of times these companies work together, whether it's video game consoles or the cell phone market. Like, we all think that Apple and Samsung hate each other, but they actually do business together too. Like they supply parts to each other and all sorts of things like that. Like there's all sorts of different areas where they actually work together, and they have to work together, so that the industry is able to continue moving forward. So, they have to meet in the middle at certain points, whether it's Apple, Google, Apple, Samsung, Sony, Microsoft, they're in the same field, so they're going to have to do the same things. And at some point, they're going to have to work together on a certain level. And with this is basically based on cloud gaming solutions. So my guess is that in these new consoles, it's going to be heavily cloud focused, and it's probably cheaper for them to collaborate with each other so that they have a stable cloud solution, and they're not bleeding money having to pay for, some sort of external cloud service or something like that. Maybe it makes more sense financially for both companies to collaborate on this. And that might actually save both companies a lot more money, and that might actually make the consoles cheaper for us or something. You never
Yeah.
know. So this might benefit everyone. So I think it's just that. I think this is all about business. It's all about business profits, and making sure that these next consoles are priced in a way that's suitable for the customer. So I think that's what this comes down to ultimately. Of course, they are still competitors, and they're still going to operate as competitors. But I guess they just have to sort of lay a foundation so that they're able to both make profit, and both coexist within this next generation that's approaching. So I think that's what this is all about.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. Um, yeah, it's all about making sure that the gamers are satisfied and trying to give them as much incentive as possible so that they will continue playing. I mean, Phil Spencer has always had the mindset of thinking about the gamers, and I do believe that he is the main reason why Microsoft is turning things around with Xbox, because after the way Xbox One launched, I mean, I didn't know how they was going to recover. So they made a wise choice to put Phil in power and have him steer that ship in a much more positive direction. So I'm definitely glad that they are open to that they are now collaborating with Sony on this. I'm glad Microsoft has been working with Nintendo to try and do more things. So hopefully, that the question I wanted to ask you now that this collaboration is been made official between Microsoft and Sony, do you think that Sony may eventually ease into doing more of this cross-platform stuff that Nintendo and Microsoft are heavily involved in right now, or do you think that they're going to still have limits on what they do, just because they want to
Yeah,
be difficult?
yeah. I think Sony's hand is going to be forced. At the end of the day, I don't think they want to do cross-play and cross-networking at all, but I think their hand is going to be forced, like with the EA Play thing, like, or the EA Access, whatever it's called.
Yeah,
Eventually they had to give in and let that service exist on the PlayStation Network, and I feel like it's going to be the same with crossplay. I feel like for the industry to grow to the next level, esports and Fortnite events, and global events and things like that. Like all these things are going to make the gaming industry go to the next step. If you look at it, like Overwatch actually just broke a record with the latest stage of the Overwatch League. Like they had I think it was like 500,000 views. They're the first esport basically to have 500,000 views on one of the big US networks. I forget which one. Maybe it's ESPN or ABC. I can't remember. But
probably ESPN.
okay, ESPN. So yeah,
I
they're
think
the
so.
first to get that many ratings, and I feel like this is the way forward. Like esports and these global gaming events are going to be a big deal next generation. So Sony is going to have to participate in these things, because let's say there's some sort of huge Fortnite global event where everyone can kind of participate or try to, maybe there's like a stage where regular people could be considered for a league or something like that, but you have to participate in this global event kind of thing and rank high, and then maybe you get signed and you're able to join, this tournament that's going to be televised, maybe. So for things like that to happen, there has to be there has to be crossplay. Like you're gonna have to be able to participate no matter what platform you have. So I think that's really the way forward, and that's what all companies are going to try to achieve next generation, because that opens up a whole new revenue door. If you can get gaming to that level where people are competing on TV, and things like that. And with the Overwatch League, it's like, sure, a lot of these players are professionals. They're paid to just play the game all day, every day. But there has been cases with the Overwatch League where just regular Joes have been signed to big major teams in the Overwatch League. So, you know, I feel like moving forward, that's going to be a big deal where everybody is going to be on these games competing with the dream that they could one day be paid millions of dollars to play their favorite game. So I think it's very important that crossplay exists moving forward. So I think maybe this particular news topic that we're seeing about the cloud gaming, I think maybe that might be part of the stipulation, because if you look at it, Sony is going to be working with Microsoft's data center. So that means, they're going to be essentially using Microsoft's infrastructure. So for that to happen, I would assume there's some sort of deal where crossplay is going to be standardized. So I think definitely that's going to happen moving forward.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I
And
did not know about that other part.
which part?
Yeah, I didn't know about that, about them having to use they have access to other parts of that Microsoft infrastructure.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a big part of it. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's ways where I'm sure there's things that Sony are offering to Microsoft also, but from what I read, Sony is going to be using Microsoft's infrastructure to deliver their own cloud-based solutions. So that gives a lot of power to Microsoft, but I'm assuming there's some sort of understanding here, and that. But to put this into perspective, right? Because I recently read a book that went into detail about the Marvel versus DC comic book war, and it talked about a lot of the early days of comics and stuff. And there was a time where DC was like number one, and because DC was like a corporation at that point, they had their own distributor service that would distribute all the comics to newsstands around the country and things like that. And Marvel, because they were kind of smaller at this time, this was like the 50s or 60s or something like that. They actually had to use DC's distributor, so that they could get their comics to newsstands also. So, DC were essentially making money from all of Marvel's comics. Even when Marvel eventually started to sell more comics than DC, and DC was actually making money from that still. Even though Marvel was selling more. So sometimes things like that are essential. Like maybe there will be two companies directly competing with each other, but on some level they still have to work together to kind of move the industry forward and let the industry grow. And the objective here for Sony and Microsoft is to see this industry grow to the next step, and they have to do it together, because then they both benefit from that. They're going to be making even more money than they already are. So they need each other for it to grow to that next step. So I think that's what's happening here.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. Um, so I mean, I'm very curious to see what this would mean moving forward for both companies. Uh, I'm also curious to see how the fans are going to react to this. I haven't really taken a look at social media, so I don't really know if there was any people that was angry about this news. But I mean, if you're a gamer that cares about gaming and not just the platform, then you should look at this as a win for everybody. But I don't know. I'm pretty sure there are some people out there that are not too happy about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone who's unhappy about it probably just doesn't understand business and why this is a thing. And I mean, I'm not claiming that we know everything there is to know, because it's still too early to tell exactly, you know, um, what's going to come of this, because I assume that this is definitely next gen related. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to take both companies to reveal the next consoles and what they can do for us to really understand why they're doing this. And it seems like there's going to be a lot of emphasis on cloud-based gaming, and stuff going on in the network. So I guess look out for that. Like expect a lot of cloud-based stuff and a lot of expansions with the networks, like PlayStation Network and Xbox Live. Like I feel like they're gonna do a lot more ambitious things with the services on the next consoles, and that's what this is about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree. So we'll see. We'll see what the future holds.
Indeed.
So, any more thoughts that you wanted to share, or any other topics you wanted to bring up before we get ready to wrap up the show?
Um, Now I know we just pitched this whole idea of companies working together peacefully.
Yeah.
But I do want to say that I think Microsoft is going to dominate next generation, and Sony is going to be on a decline again.
You think so? That is the trend that we have definitely seen with the PS3 uh, and Xbox 360 versus the Xbox One and PS4. So that trend can certainly continue. Um, but I guess we definitely will have to. I think we should have like that's a great topic for a versus to break down, and maybe we could have our very good friend Mr. Edward V jump on the show. I tell you what, let's issue a challenge to Ed now about that. Let's have a discussion about next gen and talk about the pros and cons. Why you think Microsoft will dominate, and why you think Sony would dominate. Unless, of course, you both are going to represent Microsoft, then it won't work. We will have to have a Sony person jump on to defend that particular argument.
Oh yeah, we'll hit up Reggie. I'm sure Reggie will have some things to say about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't want to get blocked again, so
Uh oh.
I'm gonna keep quiet about Sony.
Yeah, I will say this though. I do believe that Microsoft is definitely positioning themselves to have a much better better showing next generation. I mean, with all the studio announcements, the acquisitions, it's clear that they are putting money into this stuff and they're trying to take it serious. So,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean everything we're seeing suggests that Microsoft is fully ready and that they've been preparing for
yeah.
for what's next. So I feel
And,
like they have more in place than Sony does for the transition.
oh yeah, and I do believe that they are going to announce this next console in a couple of weeks. They're either going to like announce, like say, yes, at E3 2020, we're going to reveal the console, or they're going to just straight up announce and say, this is the console, this is what it looks like, and it's coming in 2020. But they're going to do something about that because they have to understand the opportunity that they have, where they are the only one of the big three that is actually going to have a conference this year. And I do believe that because they know that, they're going to take advantage of that because that's a weight. It carries a lot of weight to have that opportunity. So I don't think they're just going to not utilize that opportunity to do something big that everybody will be talking about. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And I want to hear more thoughts on this from people listening. So leave your comments or hit us up on Twitter and let us know some of your thoughts on this.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. I would definitely encourage people to do that because I think it'll be interesting to see what the overall responses will be. But we will definitely revisit this conversation again because I mean this is a conversation we're definitely going to be having more of as we learn more about each console or when it's coming out, what games are coming to the console. Yeah, we're definitely going to continue to expand upon this particular discussion. I promise that. All right. So any other topics, or is that or are you ready to wrap up the show?
That's it for now, I guess. I mean, we're at a point where we really, I'm just waiting to learn more and more about what we're gonna see at E3, and as we get closer and closer, more details are gonna come out. So I don't want to over speculate and then be wrong about things. So I'm just waiting for more information. So I'm
Oh
I'm
yeah,
I'm a chill for now till next
there,
week.
there, I'm pretty sure there will be a ton of leaks that will happen within the next 2 weeks that will pretty much reveal all of E3 2019, and then we can talk about that stuff, and then once it is confirmed, we can reconfirm that yes, this did happen, this did happen, that type of stuff. So, but yeah, as you said, plenty of news is coming, so everybody listening, definitely stay tuned for that. And as for the next couple of shows, we are going to have a special guest on next week. We'll provide more details about that when the time comes. But we are going to be having a prediction show as well coming soon. So I would definitely encourage everybody, if you listen to today's show, definitely keep listening, because we're going to have a prediction show in a few weeks, as well as a reaction show. Because for those of you who do know, when we record the co-op on Sunday, we're actually going to be recording one of those episodes directly after the Microsoft conference. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that stuff. Plenty of discussions coming, and a lot of exciting topics to cover. So stay tuned for all of that in the next couple of weeks. Um, and
Oh,
yes, definitely thank you all for listening. I want to thank everybody on the Koalition staff for their continued support and all of the hard work. Uh, Definitely check out the WrestleCast podcast that I recorded with Dana and Adam for the Money in the Bank pay per view, which is actually taking place tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you have the WWE Network, that is, yeah, you can definitely watch it there, unless you find another way to watch it. And I'm not endorsing anything. I just said WWE Network. So just remember I said that. But check that out, and check out the podcast I did with Dana for John Wick 3. We both saw the movie. It's an awesome movie. If you like action packed films, make sure you go see that movie ASAP. Do not hesitate. It was an awesome film. But yeah, check that out for sure. And thank you for your continued support. Gary, the floor is now yours for shout outs.
yep, as always, big shouts to our Patreon supporters: M. Collins, Mauricio Aguilar, Himdil, Fergus Mills, Miguel, Antonio Rogers, and Sean Gority. We appreciate your continued support. Don't forget, if you are listening and you're enjoying the show, your contributions will help improve the show and grow the show and even better our coverage for E3 and things like that. So definitely think about supporting us if you enjoy what we're putting out there. And the more contributions we get, the more we're able to do and things like that. So we fully appreciate the people who have already been supporting us for a long time now. So thanks a bunch to you guys. And I also want to give an additional shout outs to the Koalition team. Richard, Dana, Tatiana, Tony, JJ, and Adam Vale, who's been putting out some great reviews lately as well.
Absolutely.
And Anthony Nash, Assad Quadri, and everyone else who contributes to the site and everything. So big shouts to all of you guys, and I want to say thanks to my close friends Ramiz and Carl for always supporting and everything. So big shouts to them too. And Edward Velasquez, like, you need to come back on the show because I saw you talking smack last week. So we need you on to cover this Xbox show, man. So make sure you're here. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Sounds good to me. Yes. So thank you all for listening, your continued support. Hope that you all have a great week. We will talk to you all next Sunday.
Indeed. And enjoy Game of Thrones, everyone.
Oh yeah, Game of Thrones. Yes, Game of Thrones. Definitely watch Game of Thrones tonight.
Peace.